At 2:17 a.m., the finance minister of a small country is staring at a blinking cursor on a screen. Not a battlefield, not a riot, just an email. If he doesn't reply yes by morning, his country's banks won't open. No cash. No imports, no fuel. No medicine. People will wake up to a nation that suddenly can't pay for anything. And the strange part is this: no enemy attacked. No war was declared, nothing physically broke. What failed was invisible. There is a machine that sits behind every modern economy. You never see it, you never vote for it. But it quietly decides which countries get to keep buying things and when which ones get cut off. Today we're going to walk inside that machine. Because right now more countries are closer to broke than they look. Not poor, not chaotic, broke in a very specific financial sense. And once you see how the system really works, you'll never look at national debt the same way again. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Countries don't go broke the way people do. They don't run out of money. They run out of permission. Let me explain. Imagine you run a small shop in a busy market. You don't print your own money. You use the market's currency. As long as customers trust you, suppliers keep delivering, and banks keep lending, you're fine. But if one day everyone quietly decides you're risky, suddenly suppliers demand cash. Banks raise interest. Your credit line disappears. Your shop didn't change. The rules around you did. That's what happens to countries. They borrow in global money. They trade in global money. They owe global money. And global money comes with global referees. The world's financial system works like a massive trust network. Trillions of dollars move every day based on one simple question. Do we believe this country will pay us back? That belief is the invisible machine. And it has three main parts: ratings, markets, and dollars. Let's start with ratings. There are only a few companies in the world that get to decide how safe a country is. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Fitch, they don't lend money. They don't run governments. They just publish letters, AA, ABB junk. Those letters quietly control everything. If a country gets downgraded, it's like a restaurant suddenly getting a bad hygiene score. Nothing in the kitchen changed overnight, but customers start leaving. When a country drops even one notch, investors demand higher interest. Higher interest means more of the country's tax money goes to debt instead of schools, roads, or hospitals. And that makes the country riskier, which leads to more downgrades. A feedback loop. Now here's the part nobody likes to admit. These ratings are not neutral. They're based on models that assume certain types of governments are more responsible than others. Raise taxes on the rich. Markets get nervous, cut social programs. Markets feel calm, so countries slowly start governing not for voters, but for ratings. Next comes the bond market. This is where countries actually borrow. They sell pieces of their future tax revenue called bonds. Investors buy them. If investors are scared, they demand higher interest. If interest goes too high, the country can't afford to borrow anymore. It's like trying to refinance your house when the bank thinks you're about to lose your job. Now the final piece, the dollar. Most global debt is in dollars. Even if a country earns in pesos, rupees, or rand, it often owes in dollars. That means it can't print what it owes. It has to earn or borrow dollars. And where do dollars come from? Trade, tourism, exports, or loans from the same system that judges you. So here's the trap. If investors get scared, capital leaves. The currency falls. Dollar debts get more expensive. The country looks riskier. Ratings drop, interest rises, and suddenly a stable country starts spiraling. Nothing physical broke, the machine just turned against it. A few years ago, Sri Lanka looked fine. Tourists were coming. Tea was exporting. The airports were busy, the streets were normal. From the outside, nothing was on fire. Inside the invisible machine, alarms were already screaming. Sri Lanka owed about $51 billion, most of it in foreign currency, mostly dollars. That meant every year, the country needed dollars just to stand still. Not to grow, not to build, just to survive. Then two small things happened. Tourism slowed, and oil got more expensive. Less dollars coming in, more dollars going out. That's when the bond market noticed. Investors didn't panic. They just asked for slightly higher interest. Sri Lanka paid it, then a little higher. Sri Lanka paid that too. But every increase meant more tax money going to old debt instead of new growth. That made the economy weaker, which made investors more nervous, which raised rates again. You can see the pattern. By 2021, Sri Lanka was paying some of the highest interest rates in the world. Not because it was suddenly lazy, not because it stopped working. Because the machine had decided it was risky. Then the ratings agency stepped in. Downgrade, one letter change. Billions of dollars in consequences. Many big funds are legally not allowed to hold junk debt. So when Sri Lanka was labeled junk, they had to sell. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. When they sold, prices fell. When prices fell, interest rates rose. Now borrowing new money to pay old money became impossible. So Sri Lanka did what every trapped country does. It burned through its dollar reserves. Those are the emergency savings of a nation. Used to buy fuel, food, medicine. Once those were gone, the shelves went empty. No dollars meant no imports. Gas stations closed, power plants shut down. Hospitals rationed, and then the government defaulted. Not because the country disappeared. Not because people stopped working. But because the invisible machine cut off its credit. Here's the unsettling part. This wasn't unique. Argentina, Greece, Lebanon, Pakistan. Dozens of countries have walked this path. Different cultures. Same machine, and every time the story sounds moral. They mismanaged. They overspent. They were irresponsible. But the math tells a colder story. If you borrow in a currency you can't print, and your economy slows, you are always one market mood swing away from disaster. Even good governments get crushed. Because this system is not about fairness, it's about confidence. And confidence can vanish in a week. Here's the quiet twist nobody likes to say out loud. The invisible machine doesn't belong to governments, it belongs to capital. Trillions of dollars owned by pension funds, banks, insurance companies, hedge funds, and wealthy families. They are the ones buying and selling government debt. They are the ones reacting to ratings. They are the ones moving money across borders in seconds. And they all follow the same rule. Protect the money, not the country. Not the people, the money. So when fear appears, even for a moment, it moves. Fast. And when it moves, entire nations feel it. This creates a strange kind of global politics. Not the kind with flags and speeches. The kind with spreadsheets and interest rates. A country can win an election and still lose access to money. A government can promise schools, hospitals, food subsidies. But if markets don't like the budget, the borrowing cost rises. And suddenly those promises become unaffordable. So politicians learn something very quickly. They don't just answer to voters. They answer to bond traders. Now let's talk about the truly uncomfortable math. The global system needs debt. It has to keep growing. Pension funds need safe assets. Banks need bonds to park money. Central banks need places to store reserves. Government debt is the backbone of all of it. So countries are encouraged to borrow until they can't. Then they get punished. Then they get rescued by institutions like the IMF, which sounds nice. But IMF money comes with conditions. Cut spending, raise taxes, privatize assets, open markets, which often means ordinary people pay the price for a crisis they didn't create. The irony is brutal. Countries borrow in order to grow. They grow in order to pay. Then global shocks hit. And suddenly growth isn't enough, and the machine flips. Now here's the question that should make you uneasy. What happens when too many countries reach this point at the same time? When interest rates rise globally? When the dollar strengthens? When investors pull back? We're watching it right now. Dozens of countries are closer to the edge than headlines suggest. And the machine doesn't have mercy. It only has math. So the next time you hear that a country is broke, remember this. It didn't run out of people. It didn't run out of land. It didn't run out of ideas. It ran out of access to an invisible system that controls the price of survival. And that raises a final uncomfortable thought. If money decides which nations live comfortably and which ones suffocate, who is really in charge of the world? What's happened? Comments below. Like video and subscribe our YouTube channel for more hack.